Ukiah, California, November 1981. Northern California carries a strange stillness in late autumn. The pine forests around Ukiah hold on to fog like secrets, unwilling to lift them under sunlight. In a single-story pale green home on Empire Drive, 10-year-old Stacy Lynn Arras spent the night at her best friend's house after a small birthday celebration with classmates. That night, there was no storm, no wind, nothing unusual. By morning, Stacy was gone. The bedroom remained undisturbed, the bed still made, and the window locked from the inside. No forced entry, no footprints, no one heard a sound. No one saw a thing, no one could recall even the faintest noise, not a footstep, not a whisper. Only one detail lingered in the memory of the mother who found the empty bed. Stacy's music box, the one she carried everywhere, was playing. Its lid was open. Claire de Lune drifted gently through the room, even though no one remembered winding it. The disappearance of Stacy Lynn Arras triggered a county-wide response. Police, search dogs, helicopters, hunters, even psychics, nothing. No blood, no fibers, no trace. It was as if she had evaporated into the quiet air of a quiet town. The investigation lasted 6 months. Then it faded. The years passed. The decades followed. Her parents left Ukiah. The house was sold, resold, painted over. People stopped asking questions. All that remained was a cold line in the Ukiah Police Department's records. Missing juvenile, November 15, 1981. Last seen sleeping. Sacramento, California, March 2024. Detective Lisa Romero, special investigator with the California Department of Justice, opened an anonymous email sent to her personal inbox. No subject, no sender. Attached, a 32-second audio file. A child's voice, barely audible, whispered through static and warped music. I'm here, but I'm behind the wall. I don't remember what I forgot. The file name, Stacy 104, final.wav. Romero had seen many terrible things in her 20-year career, but no clip had ever sent a chill down her spine like this one. Then she noticed something. 104. The room number from the original case file. The bedroom at the far end of the hallway. The same room where Stacy vanished in 1981. The house had since been auctioned, renovated, new owners. But recently, there had been reports soft sounds, movement, whispers inside the walls. Romero got in her car and drove north to Ukiah. 44 years later, the room Stacy vanished from would finally be reopened. Not with a key, but with a question no one had dared to ask. If Stacy never left that house, where was she kept? March 22, 2024. The house at Martin Empire Drive, Ukiah, California, had just been listed for the 6th time in 30 years. The new owners were a couple from Modesto, looking for peace and quiet after the husband's early retirement from local law enforcement. A small, 3-bedroom house. Modest kitchen, backyard facing the tree line. Classic American suburbia white picket fence, unused wine cellar, gray stone path leading to the porch. To the unknowing eye, it looked like any other listing. But under disclosures in the real estate paperwork, a faintly crossed-out line remained, possibly associated with past police investigation. Case closed, no findings. No one said much. The husband didn't ask. The wife couldn't sleep from the first night. A few days after moving in, they began hearing faint creaking sounds behind the wall at the end of the hallway. The room that once belonged to Stacy Lynn Arras. At first, they thought mice. They called pest control. Inspections were done: attic, ducts, roofline. Nothing. But the sound persisted. Not gnawing, scratching, very faint, rhythmic, like fingernails on old wood. On the 4th night, the wife couldn't sleep. She recorded the noise on her phone. The next morning, she played it back, and something was buried in the static. Not a sound. A whisper. Not clear. Just low, Clothes, like breath pressed against drywall. She took it to the local police. They dismissed it. Old house, settling walls, audio pareidolia, they said. She posted the clip on a cold case forum, coldecho.org. One of the moderators, an independent podcaster named Aaron Bledsoe, noticed the address immediately. 1412 Empire Drive. He downloaded the clip, cleaned the file, boosted EQ, pulled out the low-end interference, and at second 18, he heard it. "I miss my mom." A child's voice, soft, floating just beneath the static. Aaron stopped the playback, then opened the case file of Stacy Lynn Arras, the first disappearance that ever made him question how many stories were buried too deep. 10 years old, no sign, no answers. He'd never forgotten her. That afternoon, Aaron drove north to Ukiah. The house looked like all the others he'd seen, but the moment he stepped through the front door, he felt it. Something was wrong. In the back bedroom room 104, as it appeared on the original property schematic, the air was still. Not cold from the AC, cold from somewhere else, the kind that seeps from memory, not weather. He turned on his flashlight, kneeled, and behind a bookshelf, just above the floorboard, he found a fracture, a narrow line, curved slightly, no longer than a handspan, but unmistakable. The wall had once been opened, then sealed. March 23, 2024. Shortly after leaving 1412 Empire Drive, Aaron made his way to the Ukiah City Records Office, a beige, aging building near the county courthouse that stored property deeds and architectural plans dating back to the 1960s. He requested the original blueprints for the house at 1412 Empire. After nearly an hour of digging, the clerk returned with a fragile paper printout, edges yellowed with time. Aaron spread it beneath the reading lamp and checked the scale. According to the 1979 blueprint, the bedroom at the end of the hallway later, labeled Room 104, measured exactly 12 feet 3 inches in length. But a 1983 update, filed quietly by the town's Internal Housing Authority, listed the same room at 11 feet 6 inches. No renovation permit had ever been filed. He scanned property transfer records. In 1982, the house belonged to Martha DeWitt, a retired elementary school teacher. But from mid-1982 to late 1984, the listed owner changed to a strange name, Community Uplift Fellowship, a nonprofit group with incomplete tax registration tied to a mailing address in Redding, California. Aaron froze. Redding, the same city where Timothy Carlson disappeared. This wasn't coincidence anymore. These weren't isolated crimes. They were linked by architecture, by ownership, by carefully erased modifications. He returned to the house that evening. The new owners allowed him to take additional measurements so long as he didn't break the walls. Inside room 104, he used a laser rangefinder to measure interior dimensions. Then he stepped outside to measure the corresponding hallway wall. The numbers didn't match. There was a gap of nearly 27 inches, just wide enough to hide a small child, or to trap one. He pulled out a wall scanner. Near the lower left corner, where he'd found the hairline crack, the scanner beeped repeatedly. The display showed a hollow zone, no studs, no wiring, no insulation. There was no architectural reason for that empty space. Someone had built it intentionally. Aaron dropped to one knee. Hit record. Room 104 interior dimensions are inconsistent with the 1979 blueprint. Estimated void space, here 27 inches wide, 3 feet long, between walls lacking structural framing. No permits filed for alterations. Property was previously owned by a non-registered group tied to Redding. This was no accident. He examined the baseboards. One screw was loose, almost as if it had once been unscrewed and then replaced. The wall looked smooth, but inside it held something, or someone. That night, Aaron reconstructed the entire house in 3D software. The hollow zone was clear. The position matched the origin point of the voice in the earlier recording, I miss my mom. He didn't need more evidence to know a human-sized cavity had been built into that house, and it was never part of the original plan. March 24, 2024. Aaron hadn't even finished his first cup of coffee when he began digging into the tax records for Community Uplift Fellowship, CUF, using the IRS nonprofit database. No active tax ID, no financial disclosures since 1985. But from an archived filing in Mendocino County's real estate system, he found something strange. CUF had owned at least 7 residential properties between 1982 and 1987 across 3 counties in Northern California. 7 homes, all in quiet suburbs, all within a few blocks of elementary schools, churches, or fire stations. And each one shared a disturbing feature on its renovation records. The primary bedroom, or the child's room, was reduced in size in updated schematics. Aaron opened a digital map and pinned each address. A diagonal line emerged, stretching from Redding through Ukiah down to Santa Rosa. All 7 houses had been sold off between 1985 and 1989. Some had been turned into salons, storage units, or demolished. But 3 were still active homes. He began with the first, 2919. Pinehurst Lane, Redding, registered under CUF in 1983, sold in 1986. The current owner, a widowed woman, lived alone. She had no idea of the home's prior ownership. Aaron asked to do a quick structural assessment. She agreed on the condition that he didn't record anything. Inside the small rear bedroom once again, he measured a gap between the inner and outer wall that came to nearly 2 feet. No vents, no access panel, but there it was again. A rectangular patch in the wall, sunken ever so slightly, only visible when the flashlight struck it at an angle. Large enough for a person. Aaron snapped photos, took quiet measurements, didn't break anything, didn't record. He just noted it down. Same configuration. Void space where a child would have slept. Over the next 2 days, he visited Santa Rosa and Red Bluff. The results were identical. One of the homes had burned down in 1991. Fire department records confirmed it. But satellite imagery from 1989 showed it had a nearly identical layout to Stacy's house. A rear room, no windows, double-layered walls. Aaron compiled a table. Total properties, 7. Structural anomalies, 5. Existing voids confirmed, 3. All previously owned by a now-defunct unregistered organization. He dictated, distributed housing network, identical architectural modifications, usage window consistent with unregulated containment. Indicators suggest a covert youth control or indoctrination program, disguised as spiritual or behavioral reform. Structural red flags include unauthorized renovations, concealed compartments, and proximity to unsolved disappearances. By this point, Aaron knew. Stacy's case wasn't isolated. It was part of a deliberately constructed system where houses weren't built to shelter. They were built to hide. March 27, 2024. In a modest living room in Fresno, California, Aaron met with Rita Clemens, 53 years old, the last living individual on record ever linked to Community Uplift Fellowship. She lived alone, received early disability due to diagnosed PTSD, but her memory buried beneath decades of silence was sharp when it came to 1983. She sat with her back straight, fingers interlaced, voice low but steady. She didn't ask for anonymity, only that her story not be edited. Rita had been one of 6 minors placed into a rapid spiritual rehabilitation program run by CUF that year, after her parents lost custody for reasons cited as non-compliance with doctrinal authority. Inside the home, no one was allowed to use real names. Instead, each child was assigned a code word: faith, quiet, 0, obedient. Rita was called It. No questions were allowed. No calling out to one another, no mention of where they came from. The house she stayed in was 2919, Pinehurst Lane, Reading, the same one Erin had inspected. She remembered vividly the small bedroom at the end of the hallway. No window, unusually thick walls, and inside it a narrow frame of wood embedded in the plaster. I used to sit by that wall for hours. I'd hear something on the other side, like breathing. But you couldn't ask. If you asked, they took you. Erin asked, "Did anyone get taken?" She nodded. "One girl, younger than me. Never heard her again." Then came what she called the taping ritual every Sunday. The kids wore white. Sat facing a camera. They were made to recite printed phrases, not scripture, but things like, "I promise to forget," "I won't open the door," "I will never mention my mother." One time, Rita cried during the recitation. The man behind the camera shut it off. She was placed in the storage room for 16 hours. In the dark, she heard another child crying through the wall, but the voice sounded strangled like it was being suppressed. Erin played the cleaned audio Stacy's whisper, "I miss my mom." Rita froze. Her face drained of color. "I know that voice." Erin didn't speak. She continued, "It's not me, but I know that line. We were made to say it, like we meant it, so the man behind the camera would think we'd finally changed." Rita had never told police, but now, knowing someone was still listening, still searching, she said, "I can't let them erase those kids. Not again." Erin left Rita's home at 4:30 p.m. The Fresno air was dry, the sun slicing through the windshield like a blade. But in his mind, one word repeated itself. It. No name, no age, no family, and no one came looking when it disappeared. March 28, 2024. Erin returned to 1502 Empire Drive with a professional-grade fiber optic wall inspection camera loaned by a contractor friend. The homeowners agreed to let him remove a section of baseboard in the lower left corner of room 104. The same spot where the scanner had previously indicated a hollow space with no studs. Once the wood paneling came off, a small opening was revealed, just wide enough to feed the camera inside. The screen lit up with the first images. Layers of dust, rough, unfinished walls, scattered paper fragments, and in the farthest corner, a translucent plastic container sealed with old brown tape. Erin carefully navigated the camera closer. It wasn't organic. No bones, no hair, but it was still evidence. He called in a professional wall removal team, swearing them to discretion. He didn't inform local law enforcement, not yet. He needed to control the chain of information, at least until the material could be verified. After about 30 minutes of precision cutting, the box was retrieved. Inside, he found a VHS cassette, labeled in faded handwriting, Princess Draft 04, a torn scrap of paper with the warning, "Do not play without compliance." Erin brought the tape back to his private studio. The first minute flickered, distorted. Then the screen settled. A girl about 10 years old, brown hair, pale skin, sat in a white plastic chair against a pink pastel backdrop. She wore a white dress. Her hands rested on her lap, her eyes fixed forward under a harsh, direct light. There were no shadows. The camera was mounted, unmoving. The environment too precise to be accidental. Erin recognized it immediately. Studio 3. The same room layout from the Timothy Carlson case. Same flooring. Same color wall. Same lighting. Same absence of echo. Soundproofed. Purpose-built. The girl began reading. Her voice was small, deliberate, reciting from memory, not comprehension. The lines weren't religious, they were psychological. Phrases like, "I promise to forget," "I don't remember where I came from," "I don't need my mother," "I don't need my old name." As the tape progressed, her tone dulled. Her eyes drifted. Her speech slowed. At the final frame, she looked directly into the camera. Her lips moved, but no sound was recorded. Erin paused, zoomed in, read her lips. "If my mom is watching..." I didn't forget. It was the only unscripted moment in the entire recording. He sat still for nearly an hour, not from shock, but from certainty. If this tape was labeled Draft 04, then there had to be earlier versions, and likely others that followed, which meant more children had been recorded, which meant these weren't testimonials, they were rehearsals. And if any part of these tapes had ever been submitted as proof of cooperation, then every confession, every statement, every compliance recorded might have been scripted, prepared in advance, recited under pressure, inside rooms with no way out. March 30th, 2024. Aaron extracted every frame from the Princess Draft 04 tape, analyzing a sliver of light that crossed the edge of the frame. In just 0.6 seconds, a partial shadow appeared left shoulder, elbow, and the rumpled cuff of a white shirt. Using motion analysis software, Aaron estimated the subject to be roughly 5'10", with a subtle deformity in the left wrist, an inward tilt visible during equipment manipulation. It wasn't an accident. This man knew lighting. He knew how to control a subject without stepping into frame. He was experienced not in filming memories, but in manufacturing them. Aaron isolated the voice on the tape, stripped the noise, and ran it through a forensic voice print matcher used in declassified FBI training sets. After 6 hours of refining spectral patterns, he found a 92% match a man named Theodore Halver, former leader of a small spiritual sect called the Foundation of Renewal. The group operated out of Redding, California, in the same years that Community Uplift Fellowship was acquiring real estate. Halver had been briefly arrested in 1987 for exceeding permitted minor guardianship without parental presence, but was never charged. Parents had all signed spiritual consent waivers. The case lasted only 3 months before vanishing from the docket. After 1989, Theodore Halver ceased to exist in every legal system Aaron searched. No birth certificate. No Social Security match. No death notice. The name evaporated. But through old property tax records, Aaron found a 1985 transaction. Halver purchased a warehouse on the outskirts of Millville, California, roughly 25 miles from Redding. The location was listed as an audio-visual equipment facility, but had no business license on record. Aaron drove there the next morning. The structure was long abandoned, but the interior remained revealing ceiling rigs for lights, reinforced flooring with cutouts for cables, and one fully soundproofed interior room still intact. On the control room wall, a faint sticker remained shaped like a small crown. Beneath it, scrawled in permanent marker, Room of Princesses, 04, complete. There was no question now. This was where Princess Draft 04 had been filmed, and if Room 4 was labeled complete, at least 3 others came before it. Aaron returned home and wrote his summary. Theodore Halver was real, but not on paper. He existed outside jurisdiction, a director, an architect, a handler of memory. These tapes weren't the product of madness. They were engineered. That night, Aaron sat alone. No recording, no camera. Just a list 7 addresses once owned by CUF. He'd investigated 4, 3 remained untouched, and only one thought repeated in his mind. If Halver didn't die, then who's continuing his work? April 2nd, 2024. The house at 508 Willow Court on the outskirts of Placerville, California, was one of the final 3 properties in the CUF network that Aaron had yet to inspect. The current owners, a retired couple who had lived there since 1991, had no knowledge of Community Uplift Fellowship, nor of the property's previous affiliations. But when Aaron presented the deed history, they confirmed one strange fact. There was a room in the house they had never opened. It was the smallest room in the house, tucked at the end of a narrow auxiliary hallway behind the old shed. The door was solid wood with reinforced industrial hinges and a commercial-grade lock. No key, no code. When Aaron asked why they'd never broken in, the husband simply said, "We didn't want to discover anything that might ruin the value of the home." With written consent, Aaron hired a locksmith. It took nearly an hour to breach the door. The first scent that hit them was mold. But behind it was something deeper acrid, sour, unmistakably human. The room had no window. The ceiling was low. Walls were bare cement over rough brick. The floor was solid concrete. A single ceiling light hung above, but no switch. The bulb could only be lit by direct current, proof that this wasn't a living space. It was a holding cell. On the floor, a thin, torn mattress. In the corner, a cracked green plastic basin. No fan, no airflow, no exit. But what made Aaron stop cold was the left wall. In the slant of overhead light, dozens of scratch marks were visible. Some faint, some sharp, and among them, etched into the surface in a curved line, STAC. I. Not written in ink, not painted. Scratched by fingernail or sharpened object. Aaron said nothing. He stepped back and began photographing every inch. In one corner lay a small metal box. Inside, a heavily folded sheet of paper, a pink plastic hair clip, faded, a frayed piece of ribbon. The paper, once unfolded, revealed the same script from the Princess Draft 04 confession. But at the bottom, in shaky, childlike handwriting, "No one hears me, but I didn't forget." Aaron couldn't be sure Stacy had been held in that room, but someone had remembered her, and someone had survived long enough to write her name, not just once, but deep enough that it outlasted paint and silence. No camera, no microphone, no documentation. The room didn't exist on blueprints. No permits, no registry. But it had held a human being, and it was still there. Aaron reported the discovery to the state's Special Investigations Office. The property was sealed. A forensic team was dispatched. But for him, the truth no longer depended on lab results. Stacy might never have left this system. She might never have left California. And she might have still been alive when the world had already declared her lost. April 5, 2024. Returning from Placerville, Aaron handed over the recovered evidence from the hidden room to the state's Special Investigations Unit. Among the items, the metal box containing a handwritten confession, identical to Princess Draft 04, caught the attention of a forensic technician. Its folded pattern and ink matched a previously unresolved case file from Reading. After handwriting analysis, the archive team linked it to an unreleased VHS tape, logged internally in 1990 with the label, "Unprocessed Material, Do Not Distribute." The tape had been mailed anonymously to a local TV station in Shasta County. No one had dared air it. It was sealed, handed to the county, and forgotten. Aaron filed for retrieval. He found it deep in the basement archive of an old administrative building. When he played it, the screen showed a familiar space. Studio 3, but this time there was no child, no set lighting, just a wooden chair and a man's voice from off-screen. This voice didn't command, didn't direct. It was low, worn out, almost unraveling. If you're watching this, then maybe I'm not here anymore. I don't know where to start, or maybe I do, but it doesn't matter now. A pause. I didn't kill anyone. I just taught them how to forget, how to live without names, without memory, without anyone. The video wavered subtle, magnetic interference. A sigh. The click of a lighter. No face appeared on screen for over 40 minutes. But at the end, the camera slowly turned, just enough to capture a man from behind, seated, white shirt, graying hair. He was angled toward faint light. His face remained hidden, but one detail stood out. His left wrist curled slightly inward, matching the deformity Aaron had analyzed from Princess Draft 04. The man stood, never looked back, and on the desk before him sat a small sign etched by hand, "Foundation closed, she is free, don't come back." Aaron didn't rewind, didn't replay. He didn't need to. This wasn't a confession. It was a memory forced into tape left behind by the man who had orchestrated the system, and likely knew it would one day be unearthed, just not when. That night, Aaron wrote one line in his case log: "Halver may no longer be alive, but the system he left behind is still waiting for a signal to start again." April 9, 2024. 1 week after the final signal tape was digitized and sealed under special protocol, the federal task force officially reopened the case of Stacy Lynn Arras under the designation K81R Open Revision. For the first time in 43 years, her name was no longer listed under Missing, No Evidence of Criminal Activity. The house at 1420 Empire Drive was fully cordoned off. A forensic psychological unit was brought in to assess potential conditions of unlawful confinement. Room 104 was stripped to its frame and behind a built-in closet. Inside a decayed wood compartment, they found a small, faded Polaroid photograph. It showed a young girl, head bowed, seated on a bare mattress. On the back, a single line written in shaky hand. "I'm still waiting for Mom." There was no date, no metadata, but the lighting, wall texture, and handwriting matched the hidden room in Placerville, the one with STACY scratched into the wall. The photo was sent to the National Digital Forensics Lab. After 48 hours of processing, analysts confirmed an 86% facial match to Stacy Lynn Arras at age 10. It wasn't conclusive, but it was enough to escalate the case to the Organized Crimes Division. Aaron, after 5 months of independent investigation, was formally invited to assist as a special advisor. He didn't care for the title or the recognition. He only wanted the answer to one final question. If she survived, why was she never found? The answer, Aaron believed, lay within the very system CUF had created. They didn't kill, they contained. And, more insidiously, they erased identity under the guise of spiritual doctrine. These children didn't run away. They were renamed, psychologically deconstructed, and cycled through properties like test subjects in a long-term behavioral experiment. Some may have been released under new identities. Others simply disappeared. Not dead, just unrecognized. Stacy's case was reclassified as missing with evidence of unlawful detainment, likely survivor beyond 10-year threshold. What did it mean? It meant Stacy may have still been alive in 1991, 10 years after the world stopped looking for her. Aaron compiled the full case chronology. No dramatic prose, no narration. Just a quiet, clinical report stored in an encrypted archive. He titled the file, "Those Who Were Never Looked For." Because in the end, what haunted him most wasn't what had been found. It was the number of children no one ever searched for. No missing persons reports. No names called. No memories kept. They weren't murdered. They were quietly deleted from collective memory.